Residents in Iran's capital are praying for rain in the midst of a severe drought.
Tehran has entered its 0 hour. Iran, a nation of nearly 90 million people, is now confronting a cascading collapse that even Russia, its most powerful ally, cannot prevent. What began as a simple drought has escalated into a multi-sector breakdown, threatening water, electricity, agriculture, transportation, and basic urban survival. In Mashhad, the second largest city, officials quietly confirmed the unthinkable. Dam reservoirs have fallen below 3% capacity. In Tehran, residents filmed dry taps and brown trickles of water, while heat waves pushed temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius. What used to be isolated problems, a dry river here, a summer blackout there, have now fused into a single nationwide emergency. Iran is entering a phase its own experts call total system failure. Across the capital's 10 million strong population, engineers have stopped speaking in technical language. Now they use a word no government wants to hear: deadline. After 6 consecutive years of weak rainfall and record heat, Tehran's main reservoirs have crashed to historic lows. International reports now confirm that several dams supplying the capital are a fraction full, with senior officials quietly warning that if new rainfall does not arrive soon, the government will be forced to impose strict rationing and even consider partial evacuations of districts that cannot be supplied at all. Behind the polite messaging of conservation campaigns lies a brutal truth. Iran's infrastructure was never built to withstand this combination of extreme climate stress and decades of political neglect. Mashhad, the religious heart of the country, is already living the future Tehran fears. Entire neighborhoods face rolling water cuts as authorities shuttle limited supply between districts. At night, people fill whatever containers they have, barrels, jugs, buckets. During the rare hours when pressure returns, they ration every liter until the following day. Isfahan, once known across the Middle East for its iconic river and ancient bridges, is witnessing yet another dry riverbed. Farmers accuse the government of diverting their water to politically connected industries, and clashes have erupted along dried-up canals that once supported one of Iran's most fertile regions. But the real danger is not just empty taps. When water fails, electricity collapses with it. Iran relies heavily on dams to feed both drinking water and hydropower turbines. So every meter of lost reservoir storage shuts down power output. At the same time, hotter summers and harsher winters push electricity demand to levels the grid cannot support. Iran's energy analysts confirm a widening structural deficit between supply and demand. Rolling blackouts, once a summertime annoyance, now define daily life in most provinces. Schools, government offices, and public buildings have been forced to close or go online just to reduce pressure on the grid. In industrial hubs in Fars and Isfahan, factories have halted production because gas deliveries were interrupted and electricity was unstable. The physical machinery carrying this load is collapsing under its own age. Many of Iran's major power stations were built in the decades following the revolution and are now decades past global retirement age. The distribution grid leaks enormous amounts of electricity along outdated lines and transformers. The water sector is even worse. Corroded pipes, cracked mains, and decades of deferred maintenance mean that a massive portion of Iran's limited treated water simply disappears into the soil. Every bit of waste deepens the crisis. Layered onto failing hardware is a governance system many analysts call fragmented, opaque, and politically manipulated. Electricity prices are set artificially low, leaving utility companies with no incentive and no revenue to modernize. Water decisions are shaped by a maze of agencies, ministries, and powerful quasi-military conglomerates. Numerous dam projects, many overseen by entities linked to the Revolutionary Guard, were built more for profit than sustainability. Environmental experts warned for years Iran was building dams on rivers that were already dying, but construction continued, draining lakes, wetlands, and entire agricultural districts. Some dams were built on saline or unsuitable geological formations, turning reservoir water increasingly salty and destroying downstream farmland. Climate change is the force that turns all these vulnerabilities into a nationwide emergency. Iran has warmed faster than the global average. Rainfall is no longer steady, but arrives in violent bursts. Catastrophic floods, followed by months of dry silence. Snowpack, once the country's natural water bank, has nearly vanished. Dams designed decades ago simply do not receive the water they were built for. Meanwhile, evaporation, driven by hotter skies, silently erases millions of cubic meters of water every year. These environmental shocks have triggered waves of human displacement across the country. International observers estimate that tens of thousands have been forced to abandon villages across Khuzestan, Sistan, Balochistan, Kerman, and other drought-stricken provinces. Wells are failing. Soil is turning to salt. Dust storms roll across regions that once harvested wheat and barley. Many displaced families head to Tehran, Mashhad, or Isfahan, cities already struggling to supply their existing populations. Informal settlements grow at the edges, often dependent on illegal water connections or improvised electrical wiring. Municipal engineers now admit the truth privately. Parts of the network are operating at emergency limit, where a single pump failure or blown transformer can send entire districts into hours of outage. During winter gas shortages, heating cuts spark widespread anger. During summer heat waves, a blackout can turn high-rise apartments into dangerous ovens. These pressures have repeatedly pushed citizens into the streets. Protests that begin with empty taps quickly escalate into nationwide demands for accountability.
Midnight in Tehran, the city made a sound people were not used to hearing: silence. No rush of water through pipes, no familiar hiss from showerheads, no low hum from rooftop tanks refilling. Across large swathes of the capital, taps turned and nothing came out. For millions of residents already living with months of warnings about day zero, it felt like the moment they had dreaded had finally arrived. Tehran had effectively gone dry overnight. This wasn't a sudden shock from nowhere. Iran is now in the grip of its worst water crisis in more than 6 decades. After a 2024-25 water year with rainfall roughly 45% below normal and prolonged drought across 19 of the country's 31 provinces.
Security forces respond harshly, aware that a water protest can ignite far faster than a political rally. Iran's transportation network is another casualty of systemic strain. Rail freight slows as locomotives break down and power becomes erratic. Highways buckle under extreme heat as asphalt softens, causing cracks and dangerous potholes. Blacked out intersections trap buses and emergency vehicles for hours. Refrigerated trucks transporting food risk spoilage during extended blackouts, directly impacting food prices and food security. Economists point to the root cause: chronic underinvestment. Years of subsidies mean utilities cannot raise revenue. Sanctions block access to foreign equipment. Currency instability makes maintenance prohibitively expensive. And so the entire system ages, together simultaneously. But these require electricity at the very moment electricity is failing. This creates a trap. Water shortages increase energy demand, but energy shortages limit water production. People in southern provinces often receive water only a few hours each day, storing it in rooftop tanks where it quickly heats to unsafe temperatures. Political and institutional privilege deepen inequalities. Certain industries, especially those linked to influential institutions, retain priority access to water and electricity even during extreme rationing. Farmers and households are left with cuts. Critics warn that, unless this distribution becomes more transparent, social unrest will continue to spread. Urban expansion magnifies the strain. New housing developments promise modern amenities, but connect to infrastructure that cannot support them. Emergency water trucks move through suburbs but cannot meet rising demand. Wealthier households install private generators, filtration systems, and storage tanks, while poorer families endure the full weight of outages. Hospitals face their own crisis. Blackouts threaten life support systems. Cooling failures overwhelm emergency rooms during heat waves. Businesses operate in survival mode. Climate models predict that this stress will intensify. Rising temperatures will accelerate evaporation. Snowfall will continue to decline. Rainfall will become more irregular. Water authorities will face the impossible task of delivering more with less. Each year, the system will become more brittle. Agriculture is in the deepest trouble. Wells go dry, pumps overheat and fail. Farms consume electricity just as electricity becomes scarce. Authorities must choose: keep fields alive or keep cities running. Cuts to agriculture drive food prices higher, force more imports, and push rural families into cities already overflowing with new arrivals. Transport networks buckle under heat and power cuts. Refrigerated storage fails during prolonged outages. Food spoils. Roads deteriorate. Emergency services slow to a crawl. Every sector begins feeding the next in a chain reaction of instability. Government efforts to modernize infrastructure remain far behind scale. New solar and wind projects exist, but cover only a fraction of national demand. Transmission lines remain outdated. Control centers operate with decades-old equipment. Inflation erodes purchasing power, preventing families from investing in backup systems. Sanctions block access to advanced technology. Civil society groups attempt reforms, but without structural changes at the national level, their impact remains limited. Industries consume vast,